Welcome to Volume 11 RockTalk Podcast, brought to you by Volume 11 Music. Your hosts, Rich Hoffa, Rik Lawhorne, and Mark Dunn. RockTalk, Volume 11 Music.
Hey, welcome to RockTalk. I'm Rich.
Rik Lawhorne, Mark Dunn.
Yeah, so we're here at Volume 11 Music shooting episode 35. We've been gone for a couple of weeks, so we're excited to be back.
Where'd we go?
Got too busy. Well, you were down in Nashville. I was here. Rick was doing all his stuff that he does.
Rik Lawhorne things. Yeah.
So yeah. So happy to be back.
Glad to be back.
Ready to go.
I feel like a TV show that just came back for the next
That's
season.
right.
Yeah, this is not a rerun.
It's not a rerun,
Exactly.
yeah.
And if you
fresh.
missed us, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.
Yeah.
We'll make sure that we're more consistent, because we are pretty consistent.
I think
We've
we
only
are.
missed a couple weeks.
Yeah.
So so this week, we're just going to kind of get caught up with what we've been doing and talk about some stuff that's happened recently, stuff that's happened in the past, and all that good stuff. So Mark, you had a fun gig playing with the bass player extraordinaire.
A bunch of great
one of
players,
the best,
actually.
Billy Sheehan and a bunch
Billy
of other
Sheehan, yeah.
a bunch of other
So,
great people.
Down in, there's a guy named Tyson Leslie that has this thing called he does a bunch of stuff. He's actually the keyboard player and tour manager for Vixen.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he does these, jams on like the Monsters of Rock cruises, and just puts these nights together of, somewhat nostalgic.
Yeah.
So there was a Rockin' Pod convention in Nashville, which is where a lot of podcasters kind of converge, and they podcast from Nashville. But musical acts that were of note in the late '80s, early '90s, kind of the metal, rockish,
Hard rock
stuff.
metal.
Are coming in and making an appearance at this. And so the night previous to the convention was a jam, and a singer named Joel Ellis, great singer, had a band, Cats and Boots. And then he had another band, Heavy Bones, with Frankie Banali.
Yeah, from Quiet Riot.
And Gary Hoey.
Yeah. Great players. Man.
That album's amazing, and it came out at the wrongest time.
It's hard to market someone that's as good as it is.
But anyhow, I mean, they still were successful with it. So Joel had called me to ask me if I wanted to come down and play the gig with him, and I happened to be off that weekend.
Yeah.
It was April 11th. He called me like 3 months ago about it. I'm like, yeah, I'll hold it open. I've got friends in Nashville, and we'll hang out and go check some stuff out. And so fast forward to about a month and a half before the show, he calls me about some other things with regards to stuff, because he's got some things in the works, and he says that Billy Sheehan had called him from Japan, talking about some things, and which I'll just be tight-lipped about him at the moment, but and whatnot, and that yada yada yada. So I talked to him the next day. I called Joel and I said, dude, Billy lives in Nashville.
Yeah.
I didn't know he actually lived in Nashville.
Yeah, he's been there for about 9 years.
Wow.
And I said, why don't you just see if he wants to, jump up, And so he called me back. And I didn't take too much of it to heart.
Yeah.
And he calls me back next day and goes, Billy's in. And he goes, he's in. He's going to do the gig. And I'm like, and I think I might have told you.
Yeah, you told me about it.
You
you said don't say anything, because
keep it
you never know if this is going to fall through or not.
It's just in the music business, just in case you're wondering, out of everything that's said and done in the music business, 99% is said, and marginally less than 1% is actually done.
I agree with that.
So lo and behold, like we get about 2 weeks out, happened to be off on a Friday, and me and Chrissy were sitting on the couch watching TV, and I get a text thread in, and it's Billy and Joel talking.
Wow.
I'm like, okay, I guess we're good to go. And so Joel asked if I would bring the drummer in my band, Trip Johnson. Trip's a world-class drummer. And I happened to have a show the next night in Virginia Beach, and I go to Trip on the stage. I'm like, hey man, you think you might want to come down to Nashville with me on this thing? Yeah. I showed him the text thread with Billy and Joel, and he's like, I'm not going to tell you exactly what he said, but Tripp came down with me, and we wound up just hanging and having a great time. Cool. And I mean, I've met Billy before, and I mean, it's not like we're friends or anything, but I was pretty kind of wound up about it because we walked into this situation with no rehearsal. We called the tunes, we learned the songs, we walked on stage and played together for the first time.
Yeah,
in front of a sold-out audience at Third and Leslie.
Wow. Okay.
But once we were hanging, it was just cool. One of the cool things about it is, I think you'd all agree that in the late 80s, early 90s, music was somewhat of a verifiable martial art, and there was a lot of egos involved. And it was very competitive, and who had the highest hair and the highest voice, and who could play the fastest.
So sweet picking our.
You had to have a stage show. You had to have it all.
But one of the coolest things about it was that the hang was wonderful with everyone. Hal Sparks was cool and hanging out. Ron Keel.
Yeah, Ron Keel.
Don Jameson was one of the hosts.
Okay,
He's hilarious.
Yeah, Don's funny.
And we rolled up, and we didn't just play with Billy too. Martin Motnick is the bass player for Accept. We had Five Finger Death Punch where the guys played. So it was chock full of potential nuclear level egotism.
Right.
Yeah.
None of that at all.
That's so
it was
awesome.
just such a great hang, and Billy had such kind words to say to myself and Tripp that were unsolicited. But I'm going to leave it at that for now. But there might be some news forthwith.
Cool.
With regards to
That's
that.
awesome.
So
very cool.
Great hang, and I'm going to speak about how I did, in the sense that I don't even remember what I played, which means I did okay, because I would remember Clams.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was so.
Great. I'm sure you rocked it.
It was great. We did I Don't Need No Doctor.
Yeah,
Pie.
I Don't Need No Doctor. Great tune.
Me and Billy traded eights.
Okay. Yeah, he's doing the Billy thing. I know.
It was great.
That's awesome.
And we did Children of the Graves, Black Sabbath song with Martin.
Cool.
And we did a Cats and Poots song.
Okay.
We did. I can't remember.
Did you lower the tuning for or did you have another guitar ready to kind of let? Because it's got that drop tuning.
Yeah. So the cool thing was this was all handled like you would want it to be handled.
Right.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that. So there was a backline, there was a common drum set, which was a big, massive, double kick drum set, which the Tripp had the hardest job.
Yeah.
Because the drummer, because there's an ergonomic factor of just comfort. Your drum set is literally your throne.
Yes.
Yeah.
And your arms, and you're used to this ergonomic.
I have a lot of stories playing somebody else's kid.
And I love Tripp because he's an amazing person, but he also his nickname is The Process because he's so meticulous about how he does things, and I'm like, he's got the biggest uphill battle.
Yeah, right.
But I will have to brag about Tripp because when he sat behind the kit, with all the respect for all the wonderful drummers that played, everybody was a wonderful player. He did not sound like anyone else, and he said, "Wham!" And I'm like, "Okay, we are good."
Yeah.
And even Billy was like, "Okay," because there's just a level of there's just discomfort. It's like if you play someone else's guitar, take the way that feels and amplify it by 100. I think if you're a drummer and you sit behind someone else's kit that is nowhere nearly. Think about just taking your video game controller and moving what every button means. It's not. And he just crushed it, and I plugged into a Sur half stack.
Oh wow!
And I didn't actually. It was already on 10. I didn't have to dime it.
Yeah.
And I didn't just. It was good to go, and we just jammed and afterwards, a bunch of us came up and said, "How long have you been in Nashville?" I'm like, "Bro, I don't live in Nashville." But I'll tell you this about that, what we noticed or what I noticed. And obviously I was there for a couple of days. I was tired too, man. I did a gig in Richmond the night before.
Yeah.
Got 2 hours of sleep. And Curtis from Virginia Beach came up, and he drove down with me he videoed everything. And so by the time... I went 2 days with 2 hours of sleep. It was complete 80s lifestyle. But I've kind of lost my train. the idea of everything going down, how it did and how it came off, and everybody just being so cool was probably one of the most pleasurable, hangs and events that literally was on the I mean, those kind of things can just come off the rails so fast.
Yeah. Right.
And everybody did their job, and I mean, just...
And without naming any names, but like, as we all know, there's those egomaniac kind of players that could probably throw you under the bus really quick, you know,
super
and
quick.
for the sounds of it, no issues of anything like that.
Oh, no, what I was going to say, they even had a guitar tech, so you were asking about the guitar change.
Yes, I did,
So, and that was kind of the main weird thing. Like, our keyboard player played with Peter Gallinari, and he played with Mountain on tour.
Okay.
On New York guy. Now he tours with Tiffany. He's been touring with her for a while. And
Tiffany's still out there touring.
I didn't know that malls were still open.
You're right. I remember the mall.
She just does Amazon gigs now. She comes to your house. Normally, I would have sat up in front of Spencer's. Yeah. He ordered something from Spencer's, so I'm delivering. So no, the guitar tech. He tuned everyone's guitar, came up to the stage, and we, to be humble about it, we were the only guys that did 3 songs in a row.
Yeah,
like everybody else kind of wanted done. They had a house. They had house players. Max Rossetti, I think is his name, 29-year-old monster guitar player in Nashville from New Jersey. Just wonderful guitar player. And everybody was a great player. Jonathan Hurley is another one. I played through his rig. And here's what I was going to get at. So one of the things I noticed about this, and this is the truth, is that there is a burgeoning metal scene in Nashville.
I know.
And it's the younger guys that are flying the flag, and it's legit. The entire crowd looked like it was 1989 Sunset Strip cosplay.
We went down there back in September.
And a lot of these good rock bands that we did the
Nashville,
whole thing. They're all from that.
But we went to the clubs, and I think I'm going to hear this in another episode. But I mean, we were saying, it's just going to be like George Strait and Alan Jackson songs, and there was some of that. But there's bands playing Megadeth and Alice in Chains and Black Sabbath. We saw somebody doing like Paranoid and War Pigs. Guys with hair down to here, full of tattoos, playing on the main strip of Nashville.
Yes.
Yeah. And I loved that. This is great.
Now, I'd seen that before, but I'd not seen guys that live there.
Yeah.
That's
right.
what
that's their thing. They're metal guys, but they're in Nashville.
Yeah. So
Thrashville, like you said.
Well, and actually, Martin is from Germany. And Accept, and he moved to Nashville recently from L.A. I mean, and Billy said he moved there about 9 years ago.
Yeah, I never knew that about Sheehan, though, that he is a Nashville guy now, or has been.
Man,
a lot of those guys are moving there.
Yeah.
They're moving out of Los Angeles.
Yeah.
They wind up in Vegas or Arizona, and a lot of them are moving.
And some of the jazz guys too, like Larry Carlton's Nashville, Robin Ford,
Terry Bozzio, I think is in Nashville.
Jeff Berlin, the great jazz fusion bass player, Berlin's in Nashville now. So
it's it's. Why didn't I move there, right? And I mean, when I moved to Atlanta, I used to go to Nashville and I'd hang out with friends, and you'd get up and play. And this is in my 20s, And when a couple of years went by, like, Nashville became, and is still becoming, so populated that there's guys literally playing for tips.
Oh yeah.
And
we saw
so
it.
they may as well put police caution tape
right,
up
exactly.
around the stage.
I mean,
you're not getting up.
Yeah.
You're not getting in the way of their. And that's just how saturated it is.
Right.
And the label that my albums are on is called 9 North, and the owner of that label is Larry Paregas, and he was the man. He was the head of promotion for Sony.
Oh.
And he had a little band that he was in charge of called the Dixie Chicks.
Yeah.
So he knows a thing or two. And a few years ago at lunch that we were having down there, and he goes that the Chamber of Commerce, and this was a few years ago, told him that 900 people a week were moving to Nashville proper.
Yeah.
Not Nashville,
but the actual
Nashville.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's unsustainable. Of course, that's not considering how many people move out to the suburbs or whatever,
right.
but it's just, and it's popping. I mean, there's film is there. There's they're doing all sorts of stuff out in Nashville. And it's interesting. But I just find it interesting that you think about the home of Ernest Tubb and
the traditionalists in Nashville.
You got, the sold out crowd literally looked like they were taken out of the Sunset Strip.
Right. Dropped into Nashville 2025.
Yeah. That's great. So if you guys want to check out, there's a lot of videos online. It was called the Rare Hair Jam for Rockin' Pod. And rock was spelled R-O-K. Rock, the letter N, Pod, Nashville 2025. And they're all over the social medias and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool deal.
That's fun.
Yeah, it was a good time.
That's good.
Yeah.
Rick, you had an opportunity to play with some really cool players.
And hang with some people. I got it.
Yeah.
So probably the most if you know, you know. Not everybody might know this person by name, but if you know, you really know. The great bass player Gary Granger, he's currently playing with Mike Stern, jazz fusion player, and play with John Schofield, Dennis Chambers, has some classic albums, Blue Matter, Loud Jazz. So he's come through the Fredericksburg area a few times, and a good friend of ours that we know, Toby Fairchild, amazing drummer. They invited me out, and I got to kind of hang out, and of course, just watching Gary, your jaw just hits the ground.
Who was he playing with?
Now he's playing with Mike Stern.
But where was this thing?
This was at Cafe New Orleans, downtown Fredericksburg, back in 2007.
Gotcha.
At that point, he had a solo album that came out.
He's down in Maryland, right?
Yeah, he's out of Maryland. And it was kind of a smooth jazz album. So it was more like commercial-based jazz, but of course in the middle you got these amazing Gary Granger.
He's a monster player.
And so they were kind enough to get me up there, and I don't claim to be the world's greatest jazz player, but I am a fan of jazz and jazz fusion. So we just kind of talked real quick. Well, it's some fun stuff that we could just do. So we picked a few Miles Davis songs like All Blues and So What off of Kind of Blue, which is a legendary Miles Davis album. And it was fun, it was really cool to get to play. And of course, just sitting back, like you were saying, you're listening to Billy Sheehan and go, I just want to hear Billy, he's a man. I want to hear Gary. These guys are just world class. So for me, that's probably like as far as somebody that's, again, if you know, if you know that world. I believe I had heard that he also played on like a lot of Whitney Houston's demos.
He's a session guy.
He's a session, and in the mid to late 80s, he was doing a ton of it. He played on a lot of R&B songs. So again, just to get up there and be able to play some tunes and hang, it was a really fun experience.
Is he playing as Ken Smith?
Yes, yeah, and at that time they were working on the Paul Reed Smith prototype, which came out. There is a Gary Granger model. It's a really beautiful purple. It's a 5-string, and he does use that quite a bit.
Best
nowadays.
color in the world.
Yeah, that dark royal purple. I have a PRS that's like that. So that was really cool. And then, Rich, you mentioned earlier about the Zakk Wylde story. Now, I didn't actually play with Zakk Wylde, but I got a great Zakk Wylde story. So, as you all may know, Zakk Wylde with Ozzy Osbourne, also a ton of solo stuff, Black Label Society. So back in 1992, he was doing a guitar seminar for Gibson Guitars. This was after they had done the No More Tears album, and he was getting ready to do what was the Pride and Glory, like a solo record he was going to work on. And so he came through Fredericksburg, and I was in a band called Calamity Jane. And our bass player, Randy Lindsay, got a call, and Randy's amazing bass player. He's down in Tampa, Florida now. And they said, hey, Randy, we'd love to have you come in, because he doesn't have a band with him. He's just going town to town doing these clinics. So I'm hanging with Randy. So Randy, and I think it was Tim Whedon, who used to play with Destiny.
Yeah.
And he was on drums. So they did a 3-piece. But I'm just there hanging, know. And Zakk's a really funny guy, if y'all know. He's got a great sense of humor and very friendly. I mean, we just almost like we're just best friends right off the bat. He's coming up cracking jokes. And so he does an amazing seminar, talks about his guitar styles, talks about his influences, does a lot of the typical Rip and Zakk stuff you'd expect. But he also did some things that at the time I didn't know about, but he's done over the years. He did a lot of Allman Brothers, big Allman Brothers fan. And he performed One Way Out, their version of it, a blues classic, sound just like Greg Allman on the lead vocal, ripping guitar player. And then he was doing all this crazy chicken picking, So I was like, this is great. I loved it. I mean, nothing but...
And he's from Jersey.
And he's from Jersey. So anyway...
What exit?
We get done with the thing, and I'm hanging with Randy, the bass player. And Jack's the coolest guy. He's like, hey, you guys want to go hang out? And I'm like, is this a dream? I mean, Zakk Wylde wants to hang out.
Yeah.
So he's like, yeah, because I think he was going up to Philadelphia or somewhere. So long story short, we went up to Stafford. We had the Sylvia's Palomino Club.
And I was already there.
Yeah, you were there. And our singer in the band, Rob, came out too. So Rob was driving his truck. So there was only room for 3 in that. So it was Rob driving, Zakk Wylde in the middle, and me riding shotgun, I guess, as they say. So we're going up there, and then Randy had his van with all his equipment, so we were up there too. And what would we talk about? Well, Zakk's got a pretty funny sense of humor, and I'm a bit wacky at times. So you know what our conversation is? We somehow get on this topic of Regis Philbin. So we start doing Regis Philbin impersonate. You ever Regis? The Regis,
right.
All right, so I'm sitting here, and I'm thinking about having Ozzy Osbourne on my show. I'm drinking my coffee, and I'm going to call up. He might bite the head off of a bat. We just don't know. So we just start getting this wacky,
It was Regis and Kathy Lee.
Regis and Kathy Lee. This is 1992. And Zakk does a great impersonation. And we're just cracking each other up. We're just acting like total goofballs. And we did talk a little bit of guitar stuff because I, complimented, obviously, great guitar player. I said, I didn't know you were really into like the Allman Brothers and the Chicken Pickin' and Albert Lee. I said, because I'm a big fan of that stuff. And he's like, oh, he's a Jersey guy. Yeah, I love those guys, man. I love it. And so it was a great hang, super cool, super friendly, just cracking jokes all night long. We get up there, we hang out at Sylvia's, as you remember. Yeah. And then we had, at the end of the night, we took him back to his hotel on Route 3 where he was staying, and we hung out there with him for a little bit, and just, it was a fun time. And then we went on our way, and then I think he ended up going up to Philadelphia to do another Gibson clinic the next day. Yeah. That was a really fun, super cool hang. And like you were saying, Mark, no ego. He was just as funny as could be, almost like a comedian, just cracking joke after joke, and really friendly guy, amazing guitar player.
He was cool when he got to Sylvia because he just grouped around with all of us. Yeah. I was already there. We all hung out, shot the bull, drank a couple beers. He got up and sang with Dusty.
He did.
Yeah, he got up and sang a couple songs. It was good. It was a good time.
Most real. I mean, the when it comes to celebrities, the first time I ever met Eddie, I was still living at my parents' house, and there's a point to this, sorry. And I had posters of him on the wall. I was a teenager.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a week later, I pulled them all down.
Yeah.
Because it was the first time, and I had met celebrities before that, but not Eddie.
Heroes, the pig of the mountain,
And I realized that they're all just people.
Right,
and so, and most of them are super congenial.
Yeah.
And there is a warning of never meet your heroes.
Right. Yeah, don't meet your heroes because they'll disappoint you.
Because they are human. But most of them are real. I mean,
Can I name names? Because there's one I can counter you on that.
I mean,
I have a lot of my friends that over the years have met the one and only, I think you might know where I'm going here, Yngwie J. Malmsteen.
Yeah, right.
And Yngwie's a legend. There's no doubt. He is one of the kings of neoclassical shred. I mean, he's phenomenal. But I have not heard many good things about Yngwie J. Malmsteen. I can tell you that.
In his book, his autobiography, he pretty much says why.
Right.
And he came, first he was just, testosterone-addled.
Right.
Young man on top of the world, being the only person that did what he did.
Doing the Yngwie thing at the time.
Well, I think that he also, in the book, he alludes to a cultural disparity.
Right.
Okay.
And he came over here, and it was Ron Keel.
Yeah, Keel. Right.
Steelers. He shows up, and he's like, they're all just trying to put enough money together to buy a pack of cigarettes.
Right.
And he's like, where are the Marshall Stacks?
Yeah.
So his first experience was kind of what he thought Mike Varney had done, a little bit of a bait and switch.
Right.
So if he wasn't already, kind of a hole,
he
was right then.
Yeah.
Because he was angry. But he literally pretty much apologizes for it.
Yeah.
In his older years, and said,
and he's mellowed out, I think. He's
he's that, but now, for a long time.
Oh, I've got 9 or 10 people, and they all have separate stories. And they're all end up being like, Yngwie J. Malmsteen's the biggest jerk I've ever met.
Yeah.
It's that kind of stuff.
And that's another thing, too, is as you travel, you start to realize that, somebody that, and he may be, I don't know.
I've never met him.
But I'm just, I can tell you by traveling, you meet people from different countries and things like that. They can come across crass and things like that, but they're really not.
Yeah.
It just...
It's delivery.
It's just and not to mention, if they speak a different language, it can come across not so nice, but they didn't mean it that way.
Right.
But there's a language barrier there, and that's the kind of things that happen.
There's a funny story. Gib Droll is a wonderful guitar player I came up with in Virginia Beach. He plays for Bruce Hornsby now. He opened for Yngwie.
Oh wow! Okay.
And Gib's a blues guy.
Yeah.
So. Gib cut his teeth like I did on, Hendrix and Stevie and all that stuff.
Clapton, the bluesy kind of players.
And
same here.
So Gib was coming up and having some renown, And Gibb played just at a tour with Toby and
Yeah,
Keller
yeah,
Williams.
right. No, I saw
And
it. Yep.
so we're all hanging out backstage. It's at the Boathouse in Norfolk.
Okay.
And the stage road manager comes to Gibb and goes, "Oh, what Hendrix songs do you do?" And Gibb goes, blah, blah. He goes, "Yeah, not tonight." And so this is a true story.
Not tonight.
True story.
This is great.
True story. I looked at Gibb, and I'm not going to tell you exactly what I said to him.
Yeah.
But we were all pretty knee deep in the Heineken at that point. And I said, "You don't have anything. You don't have any traits of a man if you don't go up there and play every Hendrix song. Do
them all.
Because they are not going to turn you off.
Yeah.
In your hometown.
Right.
And so he came out. And he opened up with one, maybe two of his own songs.
Yeah.
And then it was Hendrix for 45
great.
minutes.
Oh, wow.
And it was
so
awesome.
funny.
It was the best thing ever. So, celebrities and guys like that need henchmen, but that henchman that night got told.
Yeah, that's great.
True story.
That's
a funny story.
Yep.
Definitely.
Well, cool deal. I think that wraps up this week's episode
35.
of Rock Talk. What are you guys doing? Where are you playing at this weekend?
Tomorrow night, which will be Friday, I'm playing at the Main Street Tavern in Orange, Virginia.
Yeah, okay, Orange.
Classy little place. I'm surprised they booked me.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then Friday,
lower their standards. Huh?
right? Orange, you glad I'm playing?
Yeah.
Saturday, I'm playing in Virginia Beach at Blue Pete's with the band, and then Sunday, actually, I have a private appearance in Orange, Virginia. So
cool.
I'm bookending my shows at Orange this week.
Awesome. You should take that orange bass over.
I might.
Man,
That's right.
play that on a
right.
song or two.
That's right.
So on Saturday, I'm performing with my good friend Tyler Nichols, the Tyler Nichols Band. A lot of great classic rock. We're doing a private event out in Colonial Beach, and I think we're going to be close to the waterside. From the sounds of it, it sounds like it's going to be a beautiful day, a beautiful fun event. So that'll be that's my Saturday gig, and the rest of the week I'm just hanging with these guys here at Volume 11 Music.
That's it.
Nothing but fun.
Yeah, a lot of good times here.
Yeah, and hopefully I will just be relaxing.
Okay.
Because I've had a pretty rough couple weeks.
You have, yeah.
And so, but anyway, hopefully I get out and do some riding, play drums, relax a little bit, hang out with the wife and the dog and all that good stuff. And hey, by the way, I almost got everything on the website. We're up to, I'm up to like 1,400 listings.
Oh my gosh.
That's cool.
And we're getting close.
We're
getting close. So, I'm working on the small stuff. I mean, being, picks and strings and drumsticks and drum heads and things like that. But everything's on there. It's real time. And if you're out of state, you don't pay sales tax. And so you save a little bit there. And, of course, I was trying to set up some sort of free shipping thing. I wasn't able to do it because of the website, and it won't allow me to do certain things. But I was able to do, if you're buying accessories and accessories only, if you get up to $100, you start getting a 10% discount. So not only you get a 10% discount, but you also save on some tax as well.
Yeah.
And we're fast at shipping. Everything's real time. So I hope you're enjoying Rock Talk. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, share, and leave some comments. We'd like to hear from you guys, and we'll see you next week. Peace.
This has been an episode of Volume 11 Rock Talk Podcast, brought to you by Volume 11 Music.